Let's talk about how Penelope Featherington went from a wallflower to the belle of the ball. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cheyenne and I'm so excited to do a deep dive on the glow up of Penelope Featherington. Bridgerton is literally one of my guilty pleasures and I am so excited for the season 3 premiere on May 16th. I'm thoroughly obsessed with the entire ensemble cast of Bridgerton, but this season I'm really looking forward to how Penelope manages being Lady Whistledown in her 3rd season. So when we first met Penelope, she was a friend of Eloise Bridgerton, kind of like a side character. She just happened to have a crush on her best friend's brother. And then we get introduced to the Featheringtons, and you realize that Penelope is kind of like the wallflower of her family. She doesn't seem to have much in common with her sisters, and her entire family seems to be on the outskirts of the ton. They're not considered like really cute and attractive daughters, and they don't seem to have a lot of money. Season 1, we see a lot of Penelope and Eloise's friendship. They come off as really childish in the season. They don't even know how Maria Thompson got pregnant, and they spend a couple episodes trying to figure out how that comes about.
How did she become a child if she's not married?
I do not know. I will find out. She said it was love.
We don't know this when we're watching season 1, but we find out after the fact that it was actually Penelope, through Lady Whistledown and her scandal sheets, that broke apart Colin and Maria. Penelope does this because she didn't want Colin to be entrapped by Maria's situation.
You can choose anyone but him. He is my friend, Marina. I have known him forever. And I do not want him to be tricked and deceived into a lifelong commitment.
But she also wanted to be with Colin, and she didn't want her crush getting married to somebody else. And then in season 2, she becomes a little more brave about being Lady Whistledown. We're seeing more about how she operates her business. First, in season 1, she would just take her carriage to the print shop during the Ton's balls, and no one would notice that she had left the gala. Now in season 2, she's running her sheets to the printer as a maid, dressed up as a maid with an Irish accent.
What my mistress wants, she gets. And for whatever reason, that will be you at the moment.
And then when that becomes tricky because of all of the footmen that the Queen has sent out to find her, she starts sewing her scandal sheets into Madame Delacroix's dresses and have them sent to the print shop that way. So there was a really interesting scene in season 2 where Madame Delacroix and Penelope are talking about their businesses. They talk about the similarities between each other, being women with ambition who run their own businesses. However, Madame Delacroix is becoming a little antsy dealing with Penelope's scandal sheets because the Queen is onto her really heavy in this season.
That was not part of our agreement.
Our businesses both reap substantial rewards. You understood our arrangement came with risks.
Yes, but that did not involve the Queen of England.
And season 2 is where we see the aftermath of Penelope's father's death. So being in high society London in the Regency era, if you don't have an heir to the family, your family doesn't really have that title anymore. So when you start the season, they're waiting for the new heir to come, and when he arrives, they find out that he's not really gonna solve all their problems with money. So it's really interesting to see how Penelope manages running this really successful Lady Whistledown business, but not being able to spend the money because that would just grow suspicion around her identity. So in season 2, we see Penelope's feelings for Colin grow, and it kind of culminates in this grand gesture by Colin where he exposes the new Mr. Featherington without really ruining the Featherington name. However, at the end of the episode, after Eloise finds out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown, she overhears Colin saying he would never court her, and that's like super devastating for her.
Are you mad? I would never dream of courting Penelope Featherington.
Yikes.
So now at the end of season 2, Penelope has lost her best friend and she finds that she has no chance with her crush. Now fast forward to season 3, we can see that Penelope is adamant that she needs to find a husband this season. She's been 3 years on the marriage market and has never had any courtship, which is very embarrassing. And she knows it because she calls herself a spinster to Colin.
I am in my 3rd year on the marriage mark with no prospects to show for it. What would you call that?
I feel like we're gearing up for that typical Bridgerton love story where the 2 romantic leads develop feelings for the other despite wanting to do the opposite. So Daphne was the diamond of the season and she really wanted to get married in her 1st season. And Simon was the Duke who didn't want to get married because he didn't want to bring an heir to his father who he hated. So they came up with this elaborate plan that they would pretend to court each other so that the moms of the Ton would not bother Simon and that Daphne can find a better suitor than the ones her brother was suggesting. So they had like tension, ended up falling in love with each other, happily ever after, da-da-da. Season 2, Anthony's on the lookout for a wife, but he doesn't want a wife that he can actually fall in love with because he doesn't want to lose them like he saw his mother lose his dad. We have Edwina who's in the market for a husband, and she thinks she's here for love, but really her sister Kate did this whole plan where she would get her money back and they would be financially set as long as she married someone with a title. Anthony wants to date Edwina because she's a diamond of the season and he meets all of her criterias, but then he realized that he actually loves Kate, surprise, surprise, and they fall in love happily ever after, da-da-da. So based on the past 2 seasons, I'm pretty sure we're gonna find a happily ever after for Colin and Penelope, but obviously there has to be tension. I think that will be Penelope looking for a husband and not considering Colin because she's finally accepted that she's just a friend, and then Colin falling in love with Penelope even though he friend-zoned himself. So there are a lot of rules that women had to follow when they were dating in the Regency era, but the foremost important rule was not to ruin your reputation. Because if you ruined your reputation, nobody in high society would want to marry you. And because women couldn't work, who a woman married determined her entire economic future. The women in high society that had more money or had high titles had more options in terms of suitors because those suitors were looking for marriages that could elevate their status. However, a woman like Penelope from a family at the bottom of the peerage, didn't have a lot of money, had very limited options in terms of suitors, which meant that the likelihood of finding a love match was very, very slim. So because a woman's reputation was so important, she always had to be chaperoned. And during that time period, there were a lot of like public spaces created to support this like courtship culture.
Mama, might I go play with Eloise?
Lady does not play Penelope.
Forgive me, Mama. Might I go promenade for suitors with Eloise?
Very well then.
So in this series, you see a lot of families hosting balls, going to concerts or the opera, going to the park and taking a stroll, or inviting people over for dinner or tea. So these were the public places where people could go to court or be courted. So the fact that everyone was courting in the open and in public made it so that no one's reputation got ruined, so it also allowed for all of the gossip. In Bridgerton, being the diamond of your season gives you more power to like find better matches for yourself.
Flawless, my dear.
So if you don't find a match in your first season and come back the next season to find a husband, your value kind of drops in the eyes of all these suitors because new girls have entered society. So if you're like Penelope, you can kind of understand why she's stressed because she's going into her 3rd season and she's never been courted. You can imagine what would happen to a woman that never married. So because women of high society aren't allowed to work, if they never marry, they just remain the financial burden of their male relatives. She could choose to marry lower than her social status, but like that would have social consequences down the road for herself and her children. There were instances where women inherited a lot of money and were able to maintain their independence, but a woman can't just be independent because she has money. She usually would have to hire a companion. A companion is basically another highborn woman who never got married, but maybe she wasn't able to stay with her male relatives or didn't want to be a financial burden, so she sought employment as a companion to another highborn lady. And the last option for highborn ladies who never married was to be a governess. So governess would kind of be like a babysitter slash nanny for other rich families. And these families wanted their governesses to be of high birth because they wanted to teach their children those manners and like etiquette stuff. So the options for a highborn woman that never marries are pretty bleak, but they don't really apply to Penelope because she has a job. She's just not supposed to. And she has money, but she's not supposed to. Because from the trailer, it's very obvious that she doesn't want to live at home anymore. So she's kind of using marriage as a way to gain independence in a way that's still socially acceptable for someone of her rank. And now that she's not friends with Eloise anymore, she doesn't really need to care about what she writes in her society papers because Penelope confessed in season 2 that she kind of likes playing this game at the time.
You like all of this?
That can be amusing.
She likes the gossip and she likes the anonymity that being a wallflower provides her. It's also very clear that Penelope is growing way more comfortable with the power that she holds in her scandal sheets as Lady Whistledown. For Penelope, it's more than just being an outlet for her frustrations of high society. She really identifies with Lady Whistledown. So much to the point that she ruined her friendship with Eloise when Eloise threatened to write a fake Lady Whistledown paper just to throw off the Queen's suspicions that Eloise was Lady Whistledown. Penelope knew very well that writing about Maria Thompson's pregnancy and Eloise's secret visits with Theo would be detrimental to either of her friends' reputations, but she did it anyways. The first time she did it was because she wanted Colin for herself, and she did it against Eloise because she didn't want to lose control of Lady Whistledown. So really, Penelope's scandal sheets that she printed through the printing press really gave her the power to operate outside of the constraints of courtship in Regency era and the patriarchy that existed at that time. She gained real power in high society London, so much so that the Queen was upset about how much her opinions mattered to people. And she was able to do all of this anonymously because of the printing press. For those of you that are new to my channel, I like to talk about communication technologies, and the printing press was the first mass communication technology. Mostly because before the printing press, everything that was in a book was written by hand. Lady Whistledown would not have been possible without the printing press because anyone would have recognized Penelope's writing, and one person couldn't write enough handwritten copies to gain the same level of popularity in society. So the real power of Lady Whistledown is that she's able to print multiple copies of her scandal sheets, and no one is able to trace it back to her because the printing press makes exact copies. It's super impersonal. You can't match it to handwritings from other personal letters. No one really knows who writes behind a printing press unless they put their name on the sheet. So on my channel, I like to do deep dives into media theories, media theorists, and the technologies that are changing our society. And in the vein of Bridgerton, I decided to do a video on the printing press and how it really revolutionized the world that we know today. So if you're really interested in that kind of content, please like this video, subscribe to my channel so you know when that video comes out, and leave a comment below about what you want to hear about the printing press. And also for all of my subscribers, I'm happy to announce that I finally am going to be making myself available on social media. You can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at It's Cheyenne Cassidy. And if you follow me on any of those channels, you'll see my live reactions to Bridgerton Part 1 because I cannot wait. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you like it, and I'll see you in the next one.